After my son was born, I felt very weak. I felt very sick in my stomach. I walked down the hallway to the bathroom. As I sat on the toilet, I started to get dizzy. Suddenly, a large amount of clotted blood fell into the toilet. When I looked into the toilet, I was terrified. I thought my insides had fallen out and I felt like I was going to die. I was so terrified by the scene before me that I immediately closed my eyes and prayed. While closing my eyes, I heard a loud crashing sound and I was propelled by a force. At this point I opened my eyes and found myself traveling through a dark tunnel. I knew I was dead, but I wasn't worried about that. I felt like there were a lot of people around me. I don't know how to describe what they looked like. They seemed to be made of light, and I knew I wasn't alone. When I looked into the sky, I could see a lot of stars. I also realized that there was a man standing behind me, his hand on my shoulder. Suddenly, I saw a pinpoint white light in the distance. Then the speed at which I was traveling began to increase and the point of light became larger and larger until I entered it. I seemed to be in a room with no ceiling and it was filled with white light. This light was so thick that I couldn't see the other people in the room, but I could hear them singing. I could also feel love and joy in this light. This part is hard to describe because it is completely indescribable. There is no joy that can be compared to this place, and there are no words in the languages of the earth that can describe it, so you can imagine it for yourselves. I left that room and found a very wide sidewalk that allowed 4 people to walk side by side. There were other people around me, but they all seemed to be talking and not paying attention to me. When I looked to my right, I could see majestic mountains and waterfalls, and below the peaks was a beautiful valley with many trees and meadows full of wildflowers, with vibrant colors. If you think the colors on Earth are gorgeous, you are wrong. The colors here are much softer, some of which I have never even encountered, much less know how to describe them. As I continued walking on the sidewalk, I saw a garden to the left of the grass. There were fruit trees planted there. The gate was covered with vines. I left the sidewalk and was about to go look in the garden, when just then a voice came from behind me and he told me to get back on the sidewalk. As I turned to look at him, I knew he was Jesus. He was wearing a white robe and sandals. He was very handsome, with long black hair and a neat beard. He also looked very strong. People ask me, "How do you know that's him?" All I can tell you is that when you're in his presence, you don't doubt it. We walked for a while and he gestured for me to sit down on a stone bench. In front of us was the garden, to our right was the valley and the meadow, and in the distance, I could see the mountain. The sheer joy I felt sitting on the stone bench with Jesus was irresistible. I felt like I was back home. He told me that I had work to do, that I couldn't stay here, that I needed to go back. I pleaded with him to let me stay. He reminded me that my children needed me. My daughter was 2 years old and my son was only a month old. I still pleaded with him to let me stay. I heard someone call my name. At that moment, I felt like I was back in my body and my husband was holding me and screaming my name from the floor. He later told me that when he found me, I was pale and covered in blood. It felt like I was dead. I was rushed to the hospital and had surgery the next day. I later learned that when I went into labor, the doctor didn't clean out what was inside. I learned a lot from this incident. I savored this true memory, and after 30 years of probing the Bible, I understood what Jesus had shared with me, that he wanted me to return to earth and remind everyone that heaven does exist. Death is not to be feared. God loves each and every one of us, and he is always there for us.